Hello, this is Barbara Kolm again, and I'm happy to have Jason Hayes here with me from the Mackinac Center. Jason, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. We are here at Northwood University, and you just presented a great lecture on environmentalism and all the works that you have actually researched on. And let me briefly introduce you to Jason. So he's the Director of Energy and Environmental Policy for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. He worked as a background ranger, actually, in British Columbia provincial parks and as a forester in British Columbia's boreal forest. So let me ask you, I love the woods and nature, but I'm a hunter. Are you a hunter too?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Wonderful. So you're not only you're not only conserving nature, but you're also making sure that the habitat is also in balance.
Correct. Yeah, and actually that's, at least in North America, the North America Wildlife Management setup uses the funds that come from licensed sales, hunting license sales, to help manage wildlife habitat. Yeah. So hunters are actually one of the most important aspects of wildlife management in North America.
Well, thank you. This is truly important. And also you researched national parks management and grizzly bear biology with the Fraser Institute in Calgary. Is that true?
Yes, we wrote a paper on how grizzly management was being impacted, I'll say, by a mix of federal government and environmental groups and researchers, unfortunately, at the school that I went to at University of Calgary. So, but we critiqued some of that work, so yes.
Okay, well, let's come back to, so you were a ranger and forester, and now you work as a Director of Energy and Environmental Policy at the Mackinac Center. You know firsthand the consequences of human activity on the environment. The idea that human activity and the existence of mankind itself is determinal to the environment is pervasive. Right. What do you think of this narrative?
The notion that humans are necessarily destructive, or as you said, detrimental to the natural environment, to me is missing the point that humans are a part of our natural environment. That we see things like during the COVID lockdowns, there was people who were almost kind of rejoicing, and they were publishing things. There was one group based out of the UK that was saying that COVID is the cure and humans are the virus, and that kind of mindset really is a destructive or anti-human and kind of suicidal, not kind of, it is a suicidal mentality, because again, humans are a part of our natural environment, and for us to use the resources that exist in the natural environment is the way things are supposed to be. So hunting, forest management, mining, all those kind of things that humans need to live healthy, flourishing lives, that's essential.
That's so natural. Well, in your lecture, you just mentioned Ehrlich, and I also recommend everybody to look up the lecture that has just been presented at Northwood University here in Midland, and I quote Ehrlich now because in his book, The Population Bomb in the late 60s, the catastrophes foretold in the book have not materialized, luckily.
Right.
So, however, in 2015, he told Retro Report, I do not think my language was too apocalyptic in the population bomb. My language would be even more apocalyptic today. Right. So should we believe the climate alarmists this time at all?
Right. Yeah, because so Paul Ehrlich is the classic example of how people are protected when they make these kind of really silly claims. So he was worried back in the 60s. Today he's worried that it's going to be even worse. It's more apocalyptic than he ever imagined. But it's like he doesn't even realize that Norman Borlaug's work, the Green Revolution, happened, and that we're now producing more food than we ever have. Like I said in my presentation, corn production in the United States has gone up by 2,000%, while we're still using almost the exact same acres of land to produce that additional. So we've used technology, we've used better irrigation, genetic modification, we've used fertilizer and pesticides and all those sorts of things, and we're producing more food than we ever have. So the notion, like Ehrlich's big idea was that we were going to run out of food in the population bomb. So clearly he was wrong. And also, if you look forward, going ahead, predictions from the UN and other groups are that the human population will kind of top out at 10 to 11, maybe 12 billion. Mm-hmm. And clearly we can support this on this planet given current resources. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, should we pay attention to the hysteria? No. I mean, sure, pay attention to him because he's influential, but pay attention and debunk it.
Okay. So the anti-natalist rhetoric is a derivative from this apocalyptic discourse. Mm-hmm. So what is driving the narrative? Real concern for the environment, contempt for mankind, or something worse?
Something worse. Well, at least contempt for mankind, because when you see the words of people like Paul Ehrlich and his explanations for, I should be even more apocalyptic, that humans are causing even more damage. But then when you look at what humans are doing, if you look at EPA numbers, for example, from 1970 to 2022, we've reduced the criteria pollutants, the emissions of criteria pollutants like the NOx and SOx, lead, ozone, those kind of pollutants, things that are actually dangerous for humans. We've reduced those by 78, almost 80% over the past 50 to 60 years. So we're doing much better. We're using technology to improve environmental outcomes. We're getting more efficient, cleaner, healthier. These are all good things, and they're exactly the opposite of what people like.
So we've already come a long way in order to save our planet, in order to put it this way.
Right.
Well, that's great. But there is also another problem that has been, discussed, the prediction of the population growth, isn't it? So population growth modeling is partly to blame for driving climate alarmism. On the one hand, China overestimated its growth, and today the regret of the one-child policy is definitely there.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we get out of this? I mean, the bad science.
Yeah, the bad science.
The bad science of that.
Yeah, you can see this kind of thing happening all around the world. In Europe and in North America, we're seeing, like, you need, I'm forgetting the number, it's like 2.1, your child, every couple needs to produce 2.1 or 2.3 kids to actually maintain the human species. And in North America, certainly we're down below 2 at like 1.5 or 1.7. The same sort of thing is happening in Europe and in China, and certainly in Japan. We're seeing they're very concerned about the imbalance. The older generations, there's far, far more. And so you need the younger, kind of that pyramid shape, the younger people to be able to support the older. So the notion that there's too many people is really, I think, confused. And we should be encouraging people to have families and recognizing, again, that we solve the environmental challenges associated with people by using our technologies and doing these kind of things to improve environmental outcomes at the same time as we're also expanding our food production and helping people to live better, healthier, more flourishing lives.
Well, in your presentation, you had data showing that if men stood shoulder to shoulder, yes, the world's population stood shoulder to shoulder, we could live in New York.
We could all fit
in New York.
In New York City, yes.
Wow, that's and the rest of the world would be
completely empty.
Wow.
Of people. Yes.
So, well, this is how one should put things into a correlation that
right,
people understand, and
exactly,
that the fears are out of nowhere, more
right,
or less. So away with the fearmongers. So, as a former ranger, I mean, do you think that the school curriculum should include education about the environment?
Yes.
Yes, great, clear question. Or should parents just be in charge of teaching that?
Well, absolutely, parents should be. I mean, I'm a big proponent of homeschooling, so in that case, yes, parents should teach, and the kids would learn it at school because they're being taught by their mom or their dad. But so, like, we homeschooled all 3 of our kids, and they are doing fine as adults. So, but definitely I think it should, for the people that choose public schools or private schools or religious schools, they should definitely have an aspect of their curriculum that considers things like what does it take to power our society, what actually is environmental conservation, and what's the difference between conservation and preservation and those kind of mindsets. So yes, part of the work that I'm trying to do is actually expand into that and develop curriculum and that sort of thing.
And also bring the kids into nature and explain at
absolutely.
firsthand that, because
Yes.
I think this touch wood, touch leaves, touch animals. I think this is an experience for kids that is most important for their entire education.
Yeah, absolutely.
For their lives.
More than we know, I think this is the kind of stuff that people like Jonathan Haidt are talking about. Saying that, kids should just like set down the phone, put down the smartphone, and go outside and listen to the breeze and look at the birds. And yes, exactly. Watch the rivers flow by. Get in touch with nature. Absolutely, we should be doing that.
Try to catch a fish by hand.
Or at least with the fishing rod. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here we are. So in one of you authored an article titled "Hawaii Offers a Case Study of the Inequalities of Wind and Solar." Mm-hmm. So you're fairly skeptical of wind and solar energy, obviously, as viable resources.
Right.
Why is that, and what will be the alternatives?
Yeah, so the biggest problem that wind and solar have is that they're intermittent. Even their advocates will say things like a New York Times article explained that wind and solar are reliably unreliable. So we cannot power a modern industrial society on unreliable energy. You can't tell when it's going to work. You don't know if you're running a business, like you're trying to create products. You don't know from one minute to the next if you're going to just have to send your workers home because, well, sorry guys, the wind's not blowing. We don't have electricity to produce our products. Okay, you can't rely on that. You need some kind of backup power. And so when you build that backup power, you have to build enough backup power. And today that's typically natural gas. But you have to build enough to recognize that wind and solar can at any moment go to zero or near zero production. When they do that, your system needs to be able to supply enough electricity to power the entire grid. So you're basically building two grids, and you're subsidizing, incentivizing the bad decision of building the wind and solar in the first place. So if you even look at, there was movies like Jeff Gibbs and Michael Moore made a movie called Planet of the Humans. Even Ozzy Zayner in that movie says we should have just built natural gas in the first place. So he was looking at a destroyed solar field and saying it was just a waste. We shouldn't have done this. We should have just built natural gas in the first place. That is essentially the situation we're dealing with. Because if we're building gas and nuclear, then we could have reliable, clean energy that people need to power society and live their lives.
And one question that bothers me when it comes to wind and solar, especially to wind, that it hurts the birds and the whales and our wildlife.
Right.
So why is that actually? Could you explain why those animals suffer if we use those forms of energy?
Yeah, there's one case actually from the U.S. Department of Justice in 2022 charged, it was called ESI Energy, which is a subsidiary company of NextEra Energy, and they charged ESI Energy with having killed 150 gold and bald eagles in their wind setups, 154 wind developments across the country, that from 2010 to 2019 they had killed 150 of these birds. So if you look at any other person, like if you walk under a bald eagle nest and you pick up a feather, you can be charged by the federal government. U.S. Fish and Wildlife can charge you for having harassed or illegally taken one of these, part of one of these birds. But wind companies are given kind of a pass.
And subsidies in
correct.
addition.
They're subsidized. The taxpayers actually paying them to harm these birds like this. Now, to be fair to them, they are working to try and minimize the damage by doing things like, changing the times of day, that the wind turbines run, but you can't escape the fact that millions of birds are being killed by these wind turbines, as are millions of bats, and even insect species are being wiped out because of these. So yeah, it's a real problem, and we shouldn't be subsidizing bad decisions like this.
Well, finally, to positive outlook, what would be intelligent climate policies, and how should they even be regulated?
Yeah, okay. So the short and simple answer is watch our presentations that Nick Loris and I gave, and you'll get answers like that. But intelligent climate policies would involve free market solutions that allow people to select the technologies that work best for their lives. And then as customers push and say, look, we're concerned about the environment, so I want you, company A or company B or company X or whatever, I want you to produce products that are better for the environment, that don't damage the environment, that don't harm birds and bats and bees and that sort of thing. I want you to produce that. And as customers push companies in that direction, then you'll get those kind of products. So the customers need to drive that sort of revolution or that change in the free markets. But less regulation is better, and free markets solve these problems much better than government mandates.
Well, thank you very much, Jason Hayes. As you have heard, this is just a free market roadshow. This is the solutions that we discuss 24/7 across the continents with you, with our students, with our policy makers, and with our wonderful speakers. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.